Hey there, internet's back out to the shed for another video or two. So let's do a little follow-up on some of what's gone on last week with the SCOTUS. Let's start with just kind of chronologically reviewing. The SCOTUS last week decided that no, Maine cannot discriminate against religious schools. You know, Democrats, liberals, progressives, socialists, whatever they want to call them, whether it's trying to stop Elon Musk from taking control of Twitter, wanting to bring back the fairness doctrine, any of that, they really want to change they want to silence other ideas. They want to have control of thought, and that starts with your kids. The saying is, socialists don't have kids, they have yours. And that's really what's going on there. Every tyrant in history has known that. And in 1981, they took a program they'd had since around 1900 and said, you can't use it for religious schools now. And they finally overturned that. Good on the Supreme Court. Well, Maine's Attorney General, in response, now is trying to go after them because maybe, a Christian church-run school might say, no, we're not going to hire your trans woman, non-binary, gay, furry kindergarten teacher. Okay, and their Attorney General seems to think that they should be obligated to, and that ain't right. And again, when it comes to religious freedom, somebody could go set up a humanist school or a pagan school. You can set up your own school. Just do that, and we'll see how you like sending your kids to it. Well, more power to you. And I'll be coming to this on the last part of this, or near the last part of this. We'll be coming back to this religious freedom issue. Going back to the SCOTUS ruling, California is trying to find another way to be subjective about its concealed weapons permits. And of course, today is the last day of the gun ban. But following behind the SCOTUS ruling, the Supreme Court has remanded several decisions back down to the states and said, use history as informed by text, or text as informed by history and tradition. So that's the standard. They said, you're not using the right standard, use the right standard, and we'll see if you get it right this time so we don't have to. That bodes well for all of us coming out on the last day of being able to buy a normal capacity magazine for a lot of guns. Because there is no standard, there is no high capacity unless it's high for that model. 30-round magazine is kind of the standard for an AR-15. 7-round is normal for a 1911. My 1911 takes 13-round magazines. You could argue mine's a high capacity, but it takes a special magazine. Extended magazines, that's also if you really want to get technical. So they have remanded that, a proposed gun, assault weapons ban down to the lower courts. They've remanded Young v. Hawaii, which is a concealed weapons permit case, which that should be just a slam dunk because the Ninth Circuit now has to go, oh, they said no arbitrary standard for concealed weapons. Sorry, Hawaii, you got to issue them. So all that's going on. I will link in the description below to the Supreme Court orders where they basically granted certiorari and remanded it to the lower court on a whole host of issues. I'll just link to the list of orders released today. Then we had the abortion ruling, and I will link several articles involving increases in violence toward pro-life groups. But also, in Arizona, they tried to storm the state capitol in violent fashion. And you didn't have cops opening doors. You didn't have anyone being invited in. Nobody taking selfies with the police. They were having to use tear gas to disperse them. Sounds like an insurrection to me. I think we ought to hold hearings. Just like they should have held hearings about when they burned down a guard post at the White House. But strangely, they didn't want to. And a lot of these people are the usual black-clad brick and Molotov cocktail throwing thugs. So, and generally white middle-class people with purple hair. Not that I have a problem with purple hair. I know people that are conservative that like fun hair colors. It's kind of cool. But, there are certain behavior traits that tend to run together. So, looks like you're really being peaceful there, guys. this is a thing where only 8% of the population cares enough about abortion to vote on it, and there's some indications that it's pro-lifers that care more than pro-choice, because I have a friend that he's posted a lot of memes recently opposing the decision. He has a daughter and has some other kids, but he posts a whole lot of right-leaning memes. I don't see him switching his vote over that issue, even if he disagrees with it. And he really just took it down to the States. And listening to DW, which is a German public broadcast in English, because I do get my news from multiple sources, they have this perception that it's everything else is in danger. Well, doing some more research, because I wanted to do that before I commented on that issue, Clarence Thomas was the only one to do this. So that's one justice out of the bunch, but there's a couple of his proteges on the court. He went after substantive due process, which is by which they say there's unenumerated rights that just aren't listed in the Constitution, and they just happen to be in there. Loving v. Virginia is not one of them. Loving v. Virginia was decided under equal protection. Loving v. Virginia is not going away. I was reading today, what Amy Coney Barrett had to say in her confirmation hearings. She said there is no that Roe v. Wade was not a super precedent. It wasn't a precedent nobody challenges, like Mayberry versus Madison, or a precedent nobody challenges, like Brown versus the Board of Education. Which, if you say that precedent shouldn't be overturned, then you just said that Brown versus the Board of Education is wrongly decided. And Senator Cornyn, being another dumbass in the Senate, had to completely word it on Twitter very badly to say that he now overturn Brown versus Board of Education in response to Barack Obama. Well, I don't think that's what he meant. I certainly hope it wasn't that he seriously doing so. But if you're going to say precedent shouldn't be overturned, you just said that Brown versus the Board of Education should never have been decided, because that overturned Jim Crow. Nobody thinks that was wrongly decided now. They think Jim Crow was wrongly decided. And you get right down to it, they're right. Equal protection under the law. So drop it. But, I keep saying, I like to say what moving forward they should do. We'll get to that here in a few minutes, what Republicans should do. Because an example of what Republicans should do in some of these cases just happened in Arizona, because you shouldn't be the party of just no. You should have a plan for what you're going to do, not just say, slow down there, Democrats, and just never do anything. Propose a solution to stuff. Works a lot better than just saying no. So then, we got all these rioters destroying pro-life pregnancy centers, which, if Planned Parenthood can still operate, they can still do, change their abortion rooms to birthing centers, and they could do parenting classes, and they could do adoption services. They can still give out birth control pills. There's nothing that prevents that. You can still give out condoms, and fortunately the one here has been known to give it to teenagers below the age of consent, from what I've heard. Don't quote me on that, but one of the protesters out there saw some boys stop by, and they said, oh yeah, we got condoms, and they were under the age of consent. So Planned Parenthood could still do all those things. There's so many options other than an abortion. And then after that, the court released the decision this week about the guy in Tacoma. I can't remember the court case name, but they released the decision that yes, he could pray. And what they noted there was that he was at the time he prayed, he wasn't in the middle of coaching the game, it wasn't before the game, it was after, when he was free to do all sorts of other things. And I've seen some memes about it. One of them was posted by a former teacher that said that they had a 401k that said if it was somebody with a prayer rug, that the quote Christo-fascists, which isn't really a thing, would be throwing a fit over it. Honestly, to defend his liberty is to defend mine and his and everybody else. But let's be honest about this. If it'd been a guy with a prayer rug and a name that sounded like it was from the Middle East, the school district wouldn't have created the situation. They would have said, isn't this so great? He can do that. So let's be honest about the double standard there. So another friend had done her story. I don't want to call her out and have her associate. She is much more liberal than me. I don't want people assuming she agrees with me or getting down on her for being my friend, because we've known each other since grade school. I'm not going to give a first initial on that. She knows who she is. I just gave a thumbs up on her comment. Says, okay, fine. Get out your prayer rugs, get out your tarot cards, get out this, get out that. Now, talking to my pagan friends I know, I don't think tarot cards are used in worship, but fine. Okay. Hey, that's what the Supreme Court said. Religious liberty is religious liberty. I don't think you're very serious about that, but as long as you're on your own in that moment of your own time where you can do other things like make a phone call out a dinner reservation, talk to your wife or husband, or your husband and your wife if you're into all this weird stuff, woke stuff. Okay. Then go ahead. I call the bluff on that. I challenge you to do so. Because I will defend your freedom to do just that. Take your prayer rug out or make yourself a protective circle. I totally get it. I asked my favorite witch back when the Seahawks were getting ready to play the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I asked her, hey, could you do a hex on the Patriots? And she declined because she said no, it was against her religion to do so, because 3 times what she put, she gets 3 times back, and she was afraid she'd end up destroying the whole idea of patriotism if she tried to put a hex on the Patriots, even though she was rooting for the Seahawks. So she declined to do the hex, but in talking to her, hey, if you want to do a hex on the other team, I guess that your team can also have half the hosts of hell against them, if that's what you want to try and do. So that was the latest one. And then we got a bad Supreme Court decision at the end of this week when they declined to hear a religious exemption case for the COVID vaccines. Some of the vaccines are made with, there's some vaccines made with stem cells from aborted fetuses going back to the 60s, because those stem cell lines, there's something to them. I don't totally understand the science, that they are continuously propagating. Other types of fetal stem cells don't propagate for us continuously. That's why they use those in vaccines. That would create an inherent bad issue. Now, I'm waiting for the Novavax to get approved because it's not made with this. I actually researched it. It's made with, I believe, in an egg culture. And that means my wife can't get that one. She got the mRNA one because she was thinking about going back to substitute teaching. She might not do that, but she wanted to have the option. And she was more afraid of catching something and bringing it home to me than I was of catching something. And then we caught it, and she got it worse than me, despite being vaxxed. But there are issues that people have, and that should have been heard. So that was a bad decision. But Thomas, again, greatest Supreme Court justice ever. He did want you to hear that. Just bump what I have the phone sitting on. I cannot sit still. He was trying to come through on that. So largely those. Now, moving forward, we should always be moving forward. We should always be looking to what we can do, make things better. Number one, for all of the people on abortion, right now is the time to change heart and mind. Don't be pushing for some sort of national ban. It's not going to happen anyway. Don't be pushing it. Okay? Let's fight it out in the state's courts. Now is the time to change hearts and minds. Show what we can do to provide alternatives to abortion. Show what we can do. Make it easier to adopt. Melissa and I are trying to have kids. Maybe we only have one. Maybe we decide to adopt, but don't make it hard to adopt. That's part of why people go to the other countries. Make it easy to adopt. Don't make it cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Make it easy to adopt so that a middle-class family can take them on. For those of us that are pro-life, I do think it is important that we be willing to adopt some of these children. If you can't have kids, if you want a large family, okay, once you've had 2 or 3 kids, adopt one. I think that's important. And an ex-girlfriend I had, she was one of the most pro-life women I know. She was against abortion even in cases of rape, but when that subject came up because we were dating, and I was serious about what I wanted. She wasn't sure what she wanted, I guess, and didn't go. But she said she wanted to have 4 eventually. And I said, I'm okay with 4 as long as, after 3 you adopt at least 1. And she was okay with that. And she kind of agreed with that statement, because it's important that we who are pro-life put our money where our mouth is, put our actions where our mouth is, put our life energy where our mouth is. Don't just say we should make it easier to adopt. Actually go out and do it. If you can financially, and I understand maybe you don't have a house that can support it, maybe you're now sick, way late in life, when you came to the fight, and I welcome you to the fight, maybe you've got health issues that preclude being able to take on that commitment. But if you can at all, you should be willing to do so. And I do know one family that did, got youngest son out of it. So that's one of the things moving forward that we as conservatives need to do. And that includes, you hear Democrats complain, what about the you'd support welfare and all this free crap. We should be willing to contribute to food banks, clothing closets, money to the pro-life pregnancy centers. A lot of them will give aid to poor women as well. We need to be willing. That's another way of putting your money where your mouth is. So show that is there. Don't be arrogant about, hey, we just won, let's just push it. Change some hearts and minds and win it in small battles continuously. This was a 50-year fight to get to this point. It's going to be a forever fight to slowly change those hearts and minds. So that's one moving forward. Another moving forward is because they've tried to challenge all these things. You know what? Somebody said AOC said we should codify Loving v. Virginia. We should codify gay marriage. We should codify abortion. We should codify, there was something else you want to codify. I can't remember what it was. You know what? I agree. As Republicans, we should put the Democrats on the spot. We should say, because Loving v. Virginia has been called into question by some people, not Clarence Thomas, who's in a mixed race relationship, but by people trying to play gotcha with him, we should be the ones to be first out there to codify Loving v. Virginia and make the Democrats vote against it. Or have to admit that we also are agreeing with Loving v. Virginia and force them to come to the table, agree with it, and admit that we're not basing all this crap on race. So put them on the spot moving forward. Moving forward in states like Maine, we should be saying, no, we're going to not allow the Attorney General in Maine, because what he's trying to do is trying to shut him down for other reasons. We should say, we're not going to put up with that. But in Arizona, which I will link to as well in the description below, the governor is expected to sign a bill that will give $6,000. I can go to any school, take it anywhere, whether it's a public school, private school, or you could use it for tuition, you can use it for supplies. We should be supporting those as well. I remember when I first voted, the first year was 1996. Proudly voted for Dole, who I think was completely underrated by conservatives, especially if you're a fiscal conservative. He wanted to close 5 cabinet-level departments. They came in with the contract with America. They were expecting to win 25, 35 seats, not win Congress. Contract with America comes in. They win 60 or 70 seats, if I recall. I'm going completely off the top of my head. But I remember there's 13 points, and I'm 16 in 1994, turned 16. I'm like, cool! Republicans are winning. And then they get in there, and they said, we will bring these 13 points to a vote, and our people will vote to pass them. They brought all 12 to a vote, and 12 of the 13 to a vote. Most of those they passed. Some of them got signed into law by Clinton. Clinton would not have balanced the budget without Republicans saying, we're going to balance the budget in 7 years. we should be saying, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do with it. I really need to research what would have happened if we would have followed the Ryan plan, or better yet, the Rand Paul plan. I suspect we wouldn't be in this financial mess we're in now in the first place. But do that. Say, we're going to pass school choice. We're going to, well, let's put Codify Loving v. Virginia out there and make the Democrats oppose it. Because only the woke left and the alt-right and the outright avowed racists, because alt-right won't ever admit to being racists, neither will the woke left. Only those people would ever oppose an interracial marriage. So put those things out there. Say what we're about. Say we support New York Rifle and Pistol Association, and in that context, we oppose. We want to codify federally that you cannot ban magazines, you cannot ban rifles, and let's throw gun safety in there. Make Democrats vote against gun safety education for kids. Do those things moving forward. Because we just had a whole string of wins. We're not going to always get wins. We got a loss at the very end of it by not having that religious exemption case heard, when it should have been just for the idea of what religious exemptions protect. But we got we got like 4 or 5 out of that. We did good. Let's continue doing good and saying what we're really about. I got to go see if I can get a couple of magazines that I haven't been able to get a hold of because bad address and driver's not calling to say, what's the correct address? And get this up. Peace out.